All right, we're back. The this one's really surprising, and a lot of people sent it to me. I'm gonna go with Mudahar's video, Some Ordinary Gamers, talking about this because I haven't reacted to any of his videos so far. I don't believe, but this is Jeffrey Epstein had no client list apparently, and I want to see what he says because I think this is a bunch of horseshit.
Hello, guys and gals. Me, Mudahar, and what is that award everyone keeps talking about? The Fell For It Award. You know, they pin that little badge on you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today's story is pretty serious. Now, I love horror. Okay, I've always talked about creepypastas, scary things on the internet. But I'll be real, I'm not scared of ghosts or monsters or aliens or anything of that nature, okay? Maybe aliens, but I am more scared of what human beings are able to do to each other. One of my favorite horror games is Manhunt, and that's because it's a game that focuses on what human beings do to each other, you know? Record them dying and selling it for profit. I mean, it's something that seems absurd, but it's something that can happen. It's something that has happened. Now, when it comes to the wild world of billionaires, yes, victimizing adults, children, people that are far, far more infinitesimal to you in terms of power and wealth, yeah, abusing them is kind of like a game to some of these people.
A game.
And the closest we got to actually seeing that horror unfold was probably an individual known as Jeffrey Epstein. Now, you probably remember this case from years ago. He was a guy that got basically pinched for, again, the entire, human trafficking situation he was involved in. Apparently, headquartered, apparently was somebody that was the ringleader of. And he was connected to some of the most powerful people in the world, okay? People from tech, like Bill Gates, people in power and politics, I would imagine the Clintons, like I would imagine Trump, like I would imagine, I think it was like Prince Charles. Anybody that was powerful and wealthy shared some connections with him. Now, for context's sake, this guy was so powerful that even if you showed up in his lists, it didn't necessarily mean that you did anything illegal, right? He was just that powerful. There was a lot of people that went through the guy. But there was also a lot of people that were really friendly with him, to the point where, they went to an island. I think it was the St. James Island, right? An island that, he owned. An island where a lot of evil, terrible, despicable things happened. Now, obviously, Epstein was finally arrested, sent to a federal correctional institution in Manhattan, and there he had taken his own life. Now, I want to just kind of go over some of the weird discrepancies with you. For instance, this is the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. Now, this is a United States Federal Administrative Detention Facility, and some would call it that it is the Guantanamo of New York. Now, a lot of people who have the skin tone that I do know a lot about Guantanamo Bay, and let me tell you, it ain't getting 5 stars on fucking TripAdvisor, okay? It's not exactly a friendly place to be in. Now, to show you how many people sort of showed up here, there wasn't a lot, but the people that did show up to this Federal Correctional Institute were some of the biggest, most, powerful names you could imagine in the criminal world. People like Victor Bout, who is one of the most prolific Russian arms dealers, traded back to Russia in exchange for one of our prisoners, so to speak. There was obviously Jeffrey Epstein, brought in on a record number of sex trafficking charges, was the first recorded suicide in the actual facility in 21 years. But of course, he shared this place with Joaquin Guzman, who was by far, transferred to another large administrative facility, but they kept him here because, again, this is a facility for people that are so rich and powerful, all right, that just having them in any regular prison would be dangerous, right? Imagine if they had, anybody on their side just jumping in and breaking them out. Or it consists of people that, obviously you want to make sure that they don't take their own life because they're very important, okay? Their safety is important for finishing a case, right? It's a very important place to be in. Now, obviously, Jeffrey Epstein did take his own life, apparently according to the actual, investigators. The federal government, basically released this photo, the DOJ, showing his cells just moments after he had actually ended himself. Now, obviously, when it came to this situation, you might be like, well, Muda, wouldn't one of the most premier jail cells in the country have some of the best security so we could better understand what was happening? Well, surprise, surprise. Apparently that CCTV footage was erased by technical errors, right?
I think this is one of the biggest cover-ups ever. I don't think he killed himself. I think the list exists, and I also believe that there's plenty of really powerful people that just don't want to get it out. Absolutely. I think this whole thing is a bunch of, I mean, it's, Elon said Trump's probably on his list, and I mean, probably. I bet he would be. I mean, I bet he would be. I bet the Clintons, I bet Biden was. I bet they all were. So, of course, they're going to say there's no list. And, of course, they're going to say he killed himself. Because it is damning to so many people.
Right? So the more and more you look into it, right, what they described over here was that Epstein was moved to different cells where he died on the 10th of August. 2 prison guards have been accused of failing to check on him during this time and falsifying records to say that they had. Again, very, very shady stuff to see over here, right? Like, I wonder if he really did, do himself in, or was it the actual byproduct of other people, offing him, right? Like, who really knows? Who really is going to be given the evidence? So apparently the requested videos no longer exists on the backup systems and have not since at least August 2019 as a result of technical errors. And the requested videos were made by a lawyer for, again, a former police.
You think a multi-million-dollar facility has technical errors? You're out of your mind if you think that. 100% deleted. No chance. It's not even close. It's gone. It's gone.
Officer who shared a cell with Epstein in July and is charged with homicide in a completely unrelated case. Now again, this story is filled with so many twists and turns that down the road, I guess that actual footage did come out. And a lot of these publications got 10-hour CCTV footages of this jail cell. But there was a catch in this story as well, as there always is. This jail cell footage didn't contain every single minute, especially the most important times of what happened during this case. What's interesting about this too is, like, when you look very carefully at this jail footage, right, there are actually entire minutes that have been like just mysteriously disappeared from this, right? So for instance, right here at 11:58:39 p.m., just watch what happens to the actual time code on the recorded tape. So let me just forward it a little bit just so we can get there. And of course, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and boom, it just cuts to 12 a.m. Now, you might be like, well, Muda, why is this so odd to you? It's odd because, again, this is supposed to be a full 10-hour CCTV footage that is released. Anytime a minute is missing, I don't know what doors open and who goes in and out. I don't know what's happening, okay?
Especially in a prison. Do you know prisons have a 3-layered camera system if one goes out? Or if one of the backup lenses, there's like black and white film monochrome cameras that run on like nothing. It is impossible. Not a chance they don't have the footage, or it was purposely deleted. There is zero other way to look at it.
This clearly isn't the entire picture that has been offered. And it's these kind of discrepancies that are worth pointing out, especially if you want people to like actually think for themselves, right? Again, I think it's pretty evident that that I don't actually think that there is actually any real, I don't believe the government when it comes to it.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why the story has jumped up is apparently, according to the Justice Department, they said that, yeah, he actually did die by, suicide. And that could actually be the reality. But what's shocking is they say that there is no client list. Now, this is where I have to call shenaniganders, okay?
Everyone's
because literally earlier this year, one of the biggest...
She literally said it. She literally said the list, so them saying it doesn't exist is just wrong, because she's on tape saying it was on her desk.
Things that I was seeing floating around was obviously the government wanted to release a lot of information on Jeffrey Epstein. So the Attorney General of the United States, Pamela Bondi, okay, now to give you an idea what the Attorney General is, just before anybody who doesn't live in America doesn't know this is the head of the United States Department of Justice, and they serve as the chief LEO of the federal government. They are the top cop in the country. So again, it's understandable that the top cop has access to information that you and I will never have access to, just because of the situation that they're in, just because of the security clearances given. So, again, apparently, they released in February 2025 a whole slew of evidence and flight logs and information that anybody could look through. I looked through this myself. Now, the thing about all this information that, again, Pam Bondi provided was none of this was new information. This was phase one that even influencers close to the government were touting as like, hey, these are files that are released. Nothing here was actually new. All of this information was stuff that if you really cared about this, you would have already known. For instance, this contact book was something that we had seen years prior to the government releasing phase one of these files. Now, you'd be like, okay, maybe something new is coming out in phase two. And it didn't, okay? But what did actually come out was when the government said that there was no client list, there was actual evidence, apparently, as of like a week ago, where Pam Bondi was saying that she was reviewing tens of thousands of videos apparently related to Jeffrey Epstein. So, in one hand, there's apparently 1,000 victims, okay? But now there's no client list. What, did he just do things himself? Maybe it's a semantic thing. Maybe the government says there's no client list. To that I ask, is there a blackmail list? You know what I mean? Now, I'm not an American citizen.
No, but I think Mudahar has a point here. You know what? There might not be a client list that he made. Or any, like, they didn't make one. They never listed it for security reasons to get away with it. There's probably just the list of victims, and when people showed up on the list, like to the island, they just picked the victims, as sick as it sounds, for security reasons. Now, I think there's probably a client list of something, but I wouldn't put it past Jeffrey Epstein to not have one and have them do it for security reasons. And this is a way of scapegoating it. They did not have a direct term client list. I could possibly understand that.
And I just give a shit pot of money to the Internal Revenue Service, so I feel like I feel like in some cases maybe I should be entitled to some information, right? Just by proxy. But anyways, I think if you are an American citizen, I think if you are a citizen of the country, you should be asking the same questions I am, just by a factor of 10. Because ultimately, you know, this is justice for victims, obviously, right? There's a lot of people that have been victimized in this, hundreds of them. And realistically, what this shows is that their bravery in coming out actually mattered fucking all. Because now that the people that have victimized them, the clients, which we all know there are, have basically been exonerated, you know, no information about them is ever going to apparently seemingly come out, they can now actually bring the pain back to the victims because their bravery in speaking out all but sealed their foot in the grave, so to speak, right? Because they were kind of assuming that the law was going to help them out. The law did not, in fact, help them out. The law, in fact, covered everything up here. And one of the reasons why I personally 100% believe they covered this up is back in February 2025, the Attorney General of the United States, who now their office is basically saying, yeah, by the way, there is no client list. She said the client list was sitting on her desk at that fucking moment, bro. What a lying fucking bitch. Jesus Christ. You know, this kind of...
And Pam Bondi deserves all the shit in the world for this. It is... The client list was on her desk. So, if there's no client list, then she's a liar. They all lied. Yeah, I don't believe it for a second. And the only way to make up with this is that the lying bitch, okay, used the term client list, all right, when it was really a file or a folder list. And they're using semantics to get past the problem because someone's in it that they care about. There are probably too many important people on that list that they can't release it. And they have to make it a reason for it to go away. Horrendous.
Stuff really infuriates me because it's almost as if like they think we're fucking brain dead. They think we're actually fucking dung eaters. That we have no idea. And we could just Google her name, client list, and these actual recorded pieces of articles still exist, okay? So when they asked, right, about that client list, she's like, it's sitting on my desk right now to review. Bondi told America Reports, that's been a directive by President Trump. Okay, all right. Fair enough. This should be declassified. That was actually the one thing I was excited to see, right? It's one of the things that I wanted to see released. If there was somebody, no matter how powerful they are, committing a crime, they should have this information revealed. You should not be protected by the people we pay every year, by the people we elect to protect us from actual evil. But no, in this case, evil actually won. And that's the sad part about this story, right? That's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, because I've been following this since its inception. I may not have covered every single detail of the Epstein case. I really just covered this stuff
think more
when
things
something
will come
huge
out about
drops.
It. I still think
what's more huge than the government going back on their entire statement and saying,
I don't think they're done.
Oh yeah, by the way, I have a client list on my desk. Oh, also it doesn't exist. Which one is it? Did you lie back in February, or are you lying now? Like, that's the question I think everyone is asking in the story. But yeah, I don't think you should, as a person, sit down and think what the government is saying is 100% true here. I think all of this is just blackmailing. I've always said, like, hey, report everything to the FBI if you find some bad situations going on. And I do still stand by it, like, obviously report it, but when you see the same federal agency, tout that they're going to declassify this crazy shit, but then at the final minute when they're supposed to, they just back out, renege, and say it doesn't exist. How can you trust this government? How can you trust when there is so much going against Epstein? When there's so much going against the people that he was fraternizing with, right? The people that had come to the island. When there was so much of this circumstantial stuff, when you really needed the federal government to bring up the actual evidence, why is it all gone? I really personally think no matter how powerful you are, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you are, once you get to a level of wealth and power, you are all in the same bed together. And especially if you've been fraternizing with this guy and actually committing illegal actions. Because at that point, you really have to protect yourself. Rich people will do anything they can to protect themselves, regardless of the cost of human life, at least from what it seems to me. This has been one of the most disgusting things that I've seen out there, and there's not much more that I can say other than everyone fell for it. And if you're somebody that's going to accept the government sweeping this, then I don't think you can ever really be outraged by any other case of human trafficking, whether it be this, whether it be Diddy, whether it be whatever. These are cases that draw...
Well, Diddy got off, too. Money talks. You got enough money, everything goes away.
Our attention, because for the first time, humans can, in this world we live in, see some actual semblance of justice done. But when that justice gets completely gutted and thrown to the side, there is nothing more blackpilling than that. But ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, can't trust anyone in the government.
He's absolutely right. This whole thing is a sham. She lied now. This is a lie now. She had it, I think. There is plenty of evidence. There's probably too many people on the list that are too important, and if they release the list, it would just be all black lines, and it would be embarrassing. An embarrassment to release it like that. So I think it's all garbage. Yeah, the whole thing's just terrible. I think someone murdered him. I think there's probably at least 1,000 lives ruined with this, and the whole thing sickens me to the core. It just does.